So today we're going to look at what happens when the life you plan gets out of control and gets disrupted. Last Sunday, we had Andy speak at church about just this topic, and he cemented it in a verse in the Bible. So Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to just unpack it with you because there's so much gold in there. And I'm keen to get going. So before we get started, if you don't mind praying, and then I'll read the first section of the passage.
Great. Father, we're so grateful for the fact that you're a God who speaks and you want to speak to us wherever we are right now. Please meet with us. Help us to understand. Help us to know you. Amen.
Amen. So to start with, we're looking at Matthew 8 and looking at 18 to 22. So when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head." Another disciple said to him, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own." Now let's start with the basics, Andy. Right? Who were these disciples and what was their relationship with Jesus at the point in the story?
Yeah, great question. Disciples, just young men. I mean, probably late teens. Ordinary guys from a whole variety of backgrounds. Some were fishermen. Matthew, who wrote this, he's a tax collector, which means he kind of collaborated with the Romans, with the authorities. He's not liked, but ordinary guys who Jesus called, and they just start to follow him.
Amazing. And you talked about Jesus having a classroom everywhere in your sermon on Sunday. What did you mean by that? How does that translate to someone who isn't religious?
So, I mean, we're reading the Bible now. That's part of Jesus' classroom. So God speaks to us, right? And we listen and we hear him.
Yeah.
But God doesn't want us to stay in the classroom. He wants us to get out into the world. He wants us to serve him and to serve those around us. And so I think the point here is the tension between being in this classroom, learning, understanding, knowing, getting to know Jesus better, and then breaking out into the world. We always carry on listening to Jesus. I mean, that never stops. But for these disciples, it's a kind of a formative time. They've just had the Sermon on the Mount. I mean, like the best sermon ever. If you've never read it, Matthew 5, chapter 5 to 7, got to read it. It's fantastic. Now, the rubber's hitting the road.
So that's a great context. So we had this incredible sermon. So they're all blown away, right?
Yeah.
And then you got these men that come and say, "Jesus, I want to follow you," right? And his responses were so unusual. I mean, if you're reading that for the first time, you're probably scratching your head. I'd love to just unpack that with you and ask, well, let's start with the first guy. So he said, "I'll follow you anywhere." And Jesus basically said, "No, you won't." I thought it seemed a bit harsh.
Yeah.
What was really going on there?
So these two guys are very interesting because one is saying, pick me, Jesus. I'm ready to follow you. I want to follow you. And Jesus goes, "Really? Are you sure? In other words, do you really understand it? Are you yet ready to come out of the classroom? All right? Be very sure that you are." The other guy, it's the opposite, isn't it? In fact, Jesus is really harsh with them. Yeah. He says, look, my dad's just died. I just need to go to the funeral. And Jesus goes, no, get out there, right? Follow me now. And I think Jesus just understands who we are. So the first guy, I don't think he's been a disciple very long. He doesn't know very much. He's got to learn a lot more about who Jesus is and what the mission is. The second guy, you get the kind of feeling, we're told he's one of the disciples. You get the kind of feeling that this guy's been around too long. Come on, get out there. You know, we all have it, right? Don't you? I can learn stuff on YouTube. I could spend all day learning about, how to windsurf. But I've got to get out on the sea at some point. That's what's going on.
And this is really interesting, and it nicely moves on to the next bit, which is where they were going. So they were like, "I want to follow you anywhere." And I think there was a component of, did they know where Jesus was about to go? You know, so it was incredible to hear sermons. It's incredible to feel good and be in a crowd of others who are just as excited as you. But actually, where they were going was where it was interesting. And I, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read
Yeah, do.
the next bit. So let me just get into that. So, um, okay, so from 23 to 27, Matthew 8, it says, "Then he got into a boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a furious storm came on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, 'Lord, save us, we're going to drown.' He replied, 'You of little faith, why are you so afraid?' Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, 'What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him.'"
Yeah.
Wow. So in this section, you mentioned on Tuesday afternoon you were feeling down. It's getting a bit personal now. Sorry. And this passage helped you. Can you talk about, without giving us all the details, what actually happened?
Yeah,
What
I mean,
helped?
look, I was just being honest in the sermon. Don't all of us have times when we just feel a bit down?
Yeah.
I was feeling a bit blue that afternoon. And one of the great things is my job is to study the Bible, right? So I had to study the Bible, and I come across this passage, and it was the difference was God took me out of myself and lifted my head up to look at him and to remember who he is. That's what changed everything that afternoon.
Interesting.
It was great.
So it was like in that passage when Jesus was sleeping and he woke up.
Yeah.
Okay. So for someone listening who doesn't believe in God or Jesus, what are the points of this storm story? Is it just faith, or everything will be fine?
So there's a lot. There's actually quite a lot going on in this, but I think one of the main things is it shows us who Jesus is. Okay, so this is a guy who can stand up in the middle of a storm and just go shh, 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 and the wind and the waves stop. And you might think, oh, come on, it's just a fairy story. Really? Jesus is claiming to be the living God come in flesh. If he's right, that's exactly what I'd expect him to do. I can't still my bath water, right? Jesus could stand on the back of a cross-channel ferry and just say to the wind and to the wave, hey, boys, settle down, quiet, and bam, it happens.
Yeah.
And the disciples, we're told, are just gobsmacked by this.
Yeah.
So that I think is one of the things that's going on. There's more, though, happening here. Yeah. The other thing is he's asleep. So the disciples, fishing's their job. They know that lake like the back of their hand. They're going to drown. Yeah. They know this is no ordinary storm.
Yeah. And
where's Jesus? He's fast asleep. And you just think, what? Why? Because here is somebody who just trusts God. He knows he's safe. He knows he's secure. He knows nothing's going to happen to him until he's finished his mission. He's resting. And it's a massive difference, isn't it, between the disciples, between me on that Tuesday afternoon, all right, all stressed out, and Jesus just, it's okay. I've got this.
Interesting, yeah.
Beautiful.
Such a good point.
Beautiful.
Now, in the talk as well, on Sunday, you made a distinction between being concerned and being worried that you learnt from John Malia. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, we got this lovely guy in our church who I've talked to loads, and frankly, he's got a lot to be worried about. He loves his family. He'd be worried about them, but he's just concerned. He says, I'm concerned. Of course I'm concerned, but I'm not worried. And I think the distinction there is kind of like what's happening in that passage. If you start to follow Jesus and become a Christian, does it mean all your problems are going to disappear? Of course not. Of course it doesn't. You're still going to have concerns. And if you didn't, you wouldn't have a pulse.
Yeah.
Right? But what he's talking about here is an inordinate worry, a worry that just takes you over, and you can't think about anything else, right? And what Jesus is saying is that if you follow him, you don't need to have those kind of worries, because whatever's happening in your life, Jesus is with you in the boat. The one who can still the wind and the waves is with you in that boat. Amazing.
Incredible. Now, Jesus is asleep in the storm, and you said that's not him testing them,
Yeah.
but him being fully human and fully trusting. For someone who doesn't have a faith in God, is there anything that they can learn from that image?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, if I can put it this way, if let's imagine you don't believe in God, or you're not really sure if there is one, and so on. What it means is you have to act as God in your life. You are the one who has to control things. You've got to control stuff around you. Any problems that happen, you've got to sort it out. It's all on you.
Yeah.
You've become very, very big, and God is actually very, very small. And I think we were created to be like that. And Jesus shows us. Yeah. Jesus is the perfect man, and he knows the opposite. God is very, very big. And actually he calls him my father. So this big God is my father. And so I can be very small in his hands. And therefore I don't have to have that kind of crippling worry. I can trust him. I can trust him whatever's happening. Doesn't mean magic wand, right? Yeah. Doesn't mean everything's going to be fine. But I can trust him that actually even if the worst happens, he's still with me. He'll never leave me. I'm safe with him.
Amazing. And it's really interesting when you say it doesn't mean it's going to be fine, because to begin with, we had this amazing teaching, which we didn't read about, but it happened just before. Then we have these men who are enthusiastic in finding who Jesus is. We end up on the storm, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And they had to lose complete control and have faith in God, who did help. And it didn't get better, because on the next bit, they went into some more trouble. So it looked like they're just finding one bit of trouble after another. So we're just going to...
But isn't that like life, George?
It is.
Don't you find that?
Oh, my goodness.
You know,
yeah, it is.
You get past one hurdle. Oh, everything's going to be... Oh,
and then something else.
Yeah.
And there's always friends that I have who then become Christians. And then they think, okay, life is now going to be better. So it must mean it's going to get better. And I always have to kind of refer back to what happened when Jesus was baptized. He was in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, and he was being tempted. And I said, this is your desert moment. I always tell people, the moment you decide to follow Christ, you're going to have your desert moment. And this is, to some degree, a desert moment for the disciples. So I'm just going to go into the last section of what we're looking at. So verse 28 to 34. So when he arrived at the other side of the region of God, how do you pronounce it?
Gadarenes.
Gadarenes. There we go. Thanks, mate. 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. What do you want with us, Son of God? They shouted. Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time? Some distance from them, a large herd of pigs were feeding. The demons begged Jesus, if you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs. He said to them, go. So they came out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down to the steep banks into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town and reported all of this, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave the region. Okay, we need to talk about what happened to the demon-possessed men. Because for a lot of people listening, they'll be like, what is going on? Right? This sounds like some sort of superstition, right? How do you read this story? How do you unpack it, Andy?
Look, I don't think it's that weird. You look at some great horror that happens in our world, then you read the newspaper, and what do the newspapers say? Things like pure evil. Yeah. Right? We sense there's evil in the world. Now, for some reason, these men have been affected by that evil. Yeah. And what does it do? It's violent. It's destructive. It destroys others, and it hurts them. It offers freedom, but it's captivity. These guys are captive, and it isolates them from other people. It's horrendous. Yeah. So look, I don't understand that, but I could understand that something like this could happen. We see it in our society.
Yeah.
There is evil, and it is opposed to God, and we're going to see that. And my top tip is stay away from it. It's bad. But the good news is there's one who can help you.
So in the sermon yesterday, you took a minute to explain why Matthew says there were two men, but Mark and Luke say there were one. Why does this matter? Why spend time on that?
Because this is exactly people read something like this, right? So in one gospel it says there's only one of these demon-possessed men, and here in Matthew it says there are two, and people throw their hands in the air and go, there you go, see, the Bible's full of contradictions.
Yeah.
And the answer is, really? You imagine you and I are walking down the road and I'm mugged, and we have to report to the police afterwards, and they interview each of us separately, and they interview you, and you go, yeah, it's this one guy and he stole Andy's phone, and he was awful. And then they interview me, and I go, yeah, there were these two guys that came up to him, one of them stole my phone, right? It was awful. And then the police look at the CCTV and they say, see, there weren't one, there wasn't two, there were five of them. And are we all lying? No, of course we're not lying. It's just a different perspective on the story. Mark and Luke have a very specific perspective. They want to see what happens when people come across Jesus, right? Matthew wants the same, but he's also, for him, two people is very important because it establishes that this is truth. But for all we know, maybe there were 5 demon-possessed men. I don't know. But it's not a contradiction. It's just a different angle on the story. And actually, to me, it shows this is far more reliable, right? They aren't trying, let's get our stories straight.
Yeah.
Right? No, let's be honest.
I was interested. I used to go into a rabbit hole watching crime shows when I was younger, Andy.
Yeah.
And there was an officer that said on TV, if a few witnesses come together and they have the exact same story, they're suspicious.
Yes.
Because
yes.
it seems rehearsed.
Yes.
And actually, this slight variety actually it can actually work in the favour to show actually it's different perspectives, which are going to be seen in different ways, and they're going to highlight different areas. But okay, great. Yeah, thank you that you did unpack that. The demons obey Jesus instantly. The townspeople see a miracle and ask Jesus to leave. That's the key moment, isn't it? What on earth is happening here? What is it that Matthew's trying to teach us from this part of the passage?
Yes, so look, it's what happens is Jesus just says to the demons, go, and they go into these pigs, and it's not just 5 pigs, it's hundreds of pigs, right? Maybe even thousands, and the pigs are just tormented and go off a cliff into the lake. Now, what that shows us is, of course, what I was saying about evil and how destructive it is. But it also, for the townspeople, their livelihood's just gone off a cliff. Yeah. I mean, it's all their wealth. It's like their bank balance has suddenly evaporated in front of their very eyes. And this bloke, Jesus, did it.
Yeah.
But it also shows they're more concerned about material stuff than they are about people. These two people, right, all their lives have been isolated from folk. They are now totally changed, and the people ignore that and worry about their pigs, their pocket. That's the problem. Now, you could understand that, fair enough, but actually, if they realize who Jesus is, and this is the point, Jesus is so much more precious and valuable than all the pigs in the world, than all the cash in the world. If you have Jesus, you don't need all the dosh.
For someone who isn't religious, Andy, this might sound like you're saying, give up everything that matters to you.
Yeah.
How would you push back on that reading if someone is thinking that right now?
I'd refer them to my friend George, who's sitting opposite me. So George was just a happy lad at one point, just doing what George wanted to do.
Yeah.
Okay, for many years. And then George met a lovely lady, and she changed his life. Yeah. I mean, she genuinely changed his life. So now suddenly, you actually start to take interest in things that Izzy does. I bet you're doing stuff you would never have done a couple of years ago.
It's a whole new world to me.
It's a whole new world, right? You fall in love,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're watching chick flicks, and walking hand in hand, past the harbour.
Yeah.
The point is simply, do you regret that? Is
No.
that, oh, George, look what you had to give up. Look what you've had to, it
Yeah.
must be awful for
Yeah.
you. No,
No.
you've gained so much more. This
Yeah.
is so much more precious.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't mean you stop, doing the things you enjoy and so on. It's just a matter now of priorities.
Yeah.
Is become the priority.
Yeah.
And other things become smaller. And that's what happens when you meet Jesus. You
And
don't become a fanatic.
Yeah.
You fall in love.
It's interesting you say that, because it's not that I want to like obey her.
Mm.
I want to make her happy.
Yes, that's it.
And
Yeah.
because I want to make her happy,
Yeah.
there's so many sacrifices. Like I left where I lived in London to move to Paul, where I knew
did.
just her.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? That's going to make her happy.
Yeah.
And I love her. And actually, you're right. Yeah. I think it's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving on to the last section now. So let's be honest. Your sermon makes following Jesus sound really expensive and kind of terrifying. Why would anyone want to do this?
Jesus tells another story. He talks about a man finding treasure in a field. All right, he doesn't own the field, so he covers up the treasure, goes away, sells everything he has, buys the field, and then has it. In other words, you can give up stuff to gain something so much more precious. That's what this is about. That's what's important here. The disciples have discovered, or I should say beginning to discover, that Jesus is just unlike anybody they've ever met. And maybe he just is who he says he is, God clothed in flesh, God come down from heaven to live amongst us. And it's blowing their minds. And that's what happens when you start to follow Jesus. But yeah, if you, at the moment, if you're kind of just looking into this stuff, it's going to be, why would I do it? I just say, look more at who Jesus is.
Yeah.
If he is who he says he is, boy, he's worth everything. If he's not, forget it, move on.
And you ended by saying Jesus gave up everything first. Can you explain how that changes the equation for someone who's never thought about it in that way and maybe only have experienced this passage?
Yeah, this is really helpful, isn't it? If we basically talked about coming out of the classrooms where we started and going into the forge, the place of pain, the place of heat, the place of suffering. And Jesus is asking me to follow him into that place of suffering, right? But the crucial words are follow him. We don't serve a deity who sits up in his cozy heaven going, George, do you think you can just pop into the forge for a bit for me? He goes with you into it.
Yeah.
All right. So he goes into the storm with the disciples. He goes into enemy territory with the disciples. But it's even more than that. Jesus will go to the cross for his disciples. In other words, he is willing to bear all their sin and shame that they might be forgiven. Now, if Jesus did all of that for me, he can't ask too much of me, and the point is, it moves my heart. It's not that I'm sitting here going, duty, must serve Jesus, must suffer pain. It's not, it doesn't work like that. It's love. He's moved my heart by what he's done. How could I not do that?
So you're talking about your heart being moved, and I want to just go back to the disciples here because they took it to the extreme. So the disciples never regretted it, even when it cost them their lives.
Yeah.
So that's remarkable. What would you think they discovered that made them think it was the cost was worth it?
Yeah, they discovered Jesus Christ. They discovered somebody beyond their wildest dreams. Ultimately, for them, what drove them, I think, through a life where many of them died, not just for their faith, but what they witnessed. Right, so they died because they witnessed the cross and the resurrection, Jesus coming back to life and standing amongst them. And a gun was basically put to their head. You don't believe that, do you? And they went, yeah, I do. And many of them died for that faith. Why? I think not just because it moved their hearts, but because it was true.
Mm.
It was true. And so therefore they responded to it. If it is true, then it's worth giving up everything for. If it's a lie, walk away.
Yeah. What's the one thing you hope people take away from this conversation, whether they have faith or not?
Who Jesus Christ really is. He doesn't claim to be a superhero, a guru, a great teacher, a marvelous leader. He claims to be the living God who created the heavens and the earth, come down at Christmas as a baby, weak, in a stable, to grow, to live a life we could never live, to die a death we could not die, and then to rise again to life. And he's done all of that for us. That is something worth looking into.
I've always challenged people when you're exploring. Jesus in the Bible says, I am the truth, and the truth will set you free. And actually in this world, we're full of so many lies. And whether that's in your head or around you, there's so many lies. Even in our minds, we're told we're not worth what we think we're worth. We're useless. We're imperfect. We're different. We're not to the standard that we should be. We shouldn't be given any time. But actually, Jesus says, I am the truth, and the truth will set you free. And I would just encourage anyone who's listening, seek it. Try and find the truth. I tried for many years. I tried to find fulfillment in so many different places. And ultimately, I couldn't find the peace and the joy and the fulfillment I found in Jesus to anything else. So for me, this is so real. And I love this story. And a big thing I always try and do when I read the Bible, Andy, is just really try and understand Jesus's character.
Yeah.
And not only by what he says, but what he does. And I think the key thing I see here is he doesn't run from trouble. And he's in it. He was in it until things get resolved, and he had ultimate power. That's really what stood out for me. And is there anything else you think we should mention that I haven't asked you?
No, I think just keep on looking into this stuff. It's as you said, keep looking into it. We'll put up ways of doing that around this video, but keep asking yourself this question: who is Jesus Christ? Because we've discovered that he can help you on a dodgy Tuesday afternoon, or he can affect your entire life, like you've just said. Isn't that great?
It is. Now, for those listening, we don't want to leave you there. There's going to be some form of link in the description for this video. We'll provide you with some information. And for now, if you want to reach out, just go onto the Harbour Church website, where there'll be a link. And that way you can reach out. You might even get Andy speak to you. So please reach out. Thank you for listening, and take care.
Thanks, everyone.